They loved his money. But no one ever loved him. Every relationship ended the same way. Betrayal. Greed. Lies. So one day, a billionaire made a shocking decision. He disappeared from his world of luxury and returned as something no one would expect. A homeless man. But what he discovered during that experiment would change his life forever. Here on this channel, we share powerful stories that touch the heart, teach life lessons, and remind us what truly matters. If you enjoy stories like this, take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss a journey that could change the way you see the world. Now, let's begin. The city lights stretch endlessly below Ethan Cole's penthouse windows. From the outside, his life looks flawless. Private helicopters glide across the skyline. Luxury cars line the private garage. Inside his living room, floor-to-ceiling glass reflects a man who has everything. Everything. Except peace. Ethan stands alone in the darkness, staring at the glittering city he helped build. But his eyes are empty. Tired. Haunted. Because tonight, he just learned the truth about the woman he planned to marry. Is this really necessary? His fiancée Jessica had asked earlier that evening, her voice impatient as she paced across the marble floor. She held a folder in her hand, documents she believed Ethan hadn't seen. I just think, she continued sharply, if we combine our assets now, it would be easier to transfer ownership later. Ethan had said nothing at first. He simply watched her. Waiting. Hoping. Praying he had misunderstood. But then she said the words that shattered everything. I didn't spend 3 years with you just to walk away with nothing. 3 years. 3 years of smiles. Promises. Late-night talks about the future. All reduced to a transaction. Ethan had calmly opened the drawer of his desk and removed a document. One Jessica didn't know existed. A financial audit report, showing that she had secretly attempted to access his company's shares. Her face had turned pale, then cold, then defensive. You think you're special? She snapped bitterly. Do you even know how many women would trade anything to be in my position? Ethan didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just felt something inside him break completely. Because this wasn't the first time. Not even close. Beautiful souls. Before we continue this story, tell me, where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments, because this journey is about to take us somewhere unforgettable. Jessica left that night without looking back. The silence she left behind was heavier than any argument. Ethan stood alone for hours afterward. Memories replaying in his mind like a cruel movie. The woman before Jessica who secretly took loans in his name. The one before that who leaked private company details for money. The one before that who stayed only long enough to secure expensive gifts. Every relationship. Every I love you. Every promise. Built on one thing. His wealth. Never him. By midnight, Ethan found himself standing on a quiet bridge overlooking the river that cut through the city. The cold wind pressed against his face. He held something small in his hand. His father's watch. A rare piece worth millions. A symbol of success. And the last gift his father gave him before he died. Ethan stared at it. Then whispered quietly, I don't want this life anymore. And before he could second-guess himself, he threw the watch into the dark water below. It disappeared without a sound. Just like that. A lifetime of identity. Gone. That night, Ethan made a decision no billionaire had ever made before. He would disappear. Not to escape danger. Not to hide from enemies. But to answer one question that had haunted him for years. Could anyone ever love him without knowing he was rich? The next morning, news outlets across the country exploded. Tech billionaire Ethan Cole missing. Authorities launch search. Foul play suspected. But none of them knew the truth. Because Ethan Cole wasn't kidnapped. He wasn't dead. He wasn't hiding in some luxury retreat. He was sitting quietly on a cold sidewalk near a busy downtown train station. Wearing worn clothes. His hair unkempt. A faded coat wrapped tightly around his shoulders. Invisible. For the first time in his life. The first few days were brutal. People walked past him without a glance. Some covered their noses. Others stared with disgust. One man threw coins at his feet without even making eye contact. Ethan felt humiliation burn deep inside him. But he didn't leave. Because this was exactly what he wanted to understand. What it felt like to exist. Without status. Without power. Without value in society's eyes. But something unexpected happened too. Amid the cruelty, he began to see small sparks of kindness. An old woman left him a sandwich without saying a word. A delivery worker quietly placed a bottle of water beside him. A group of teenagers offered him gloves during a cold night. These moments were small. But they felt more genuine than any luxury dinner he had ever experienced. Then one evening, something happened that would change everything. Ethan sat quietly outside a small neighborhood cafe, watching warm light spill onto the sidewalk. The smell of fresh bread drifting into the air. He didn't expect anyone to notice him. Most people didn't. But this time, the cafe door opened, and a woman stepped out carrying a warm plate of food. She walked straight toward him. And without asking questions, she simply said, "You look cold. Please eat." Her voice was gentle, not pitying, not judgmental, just human. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something he had almost forgotten, being seen. And he didn't know yet that this simple act of kindness was about to lead him into the most unexpected emotional journey of his life. A journey that would reveal not only the truth about love, but a twist so powerful, it would break him completely before it healed him. The first night Ethan sleeps on the street, he doesn't sleep at all. The concrete beneath him is colder than anything he has ever felt. Every sound is louder here, the rumble of buses, footsteps rushing past, distant sirens cutting through the dark. He pulls his worn coat tighter around his body, trying to stay warm. But it isn't just the cold that keeps him awake. It's the silence inside his own mind. For the first time in his adult life, no one is calling him. No assistants. No investors. No partners. No one asking for favors. No one pretending to care. He stares at the ceiling of the bus shelter above him and whispers quietly, "So this is what it feels like to disappear. Hey beautiful souls. Before we continue this journey, tell me, have you ever felt invisible, even when surrounded by people? Drop a blue heart in the comments if you know that feeling. Because what Ethan is about to experience will change him forever." The next morning hits him hard. Hunger. Real hunger. Not the kind that can be fixed with a late breakfast meeting, but the kind that makes your stomach ache and your head spin. He watches commuters rushing into the train station, coffee cups in hand, eyes fixed forward. They walk right past him, as if he doesn't exist. One businessman accidentally bumps into him and snaps, "Watch where you're sitting." He doesn't even look down. Ethan feels the sting of those words more than the cold. Because just weeks ago, he was that businessman. Walking fast. Looking past people like him. never realizing the weight of being ignored. Days turn into weeks. Ethan learns quickly how harsh street life really is. He learns where to find public restrooms, which spots are safest to sleep, which people to avoid. He sees cruelty he never imagined. Some nights, teenagers drive past shouting insults. Other times, people film him on their phones as if he's an attraction. But he also begins to notice something else. Small acts of kindness. Quiet ones. The kind that don't expect anything in return. Every evening around closing time, the cafe across the street becomes a small beacon of warmth in his life. That's where he first meets her. Lena. She runs the cafe with simple grace. Early 30s. Kind eyes. Always moving quickly between customers. But she notices things others miss. Like the night she saw Ethan shivering outside. She didn't ask questions. She didn't demand explanations. She simply brought him a warm bowl of soup and said, "You deserve to be warm tonight." Her words weren't dramatic. But they hit Ethan deeper than anything he had heard in years. Because no one had spoken to him like that. Without knowing his wealth. Without expecting something in return. Over time, Lena begins leaving food for him regularly. Sometimes bread. Sometimes coffee. Sometimes just a quiet smile. And slowly, Ethan begins to speak to her. At first, only small words. "Thank you." "Good evening." But eventually, conversations grow. She asks his name. He hesitates. Then answers softly. "Evan." It's close enough to the truth, but far enough to protect his identity. Lena never presses for details about his past. She never asks how he ended up on the street. She treats him not as a problem to fix, but as a human being to respect. One evening, she says something that stays with him. "Everyone has a story. Sometimes people just need time before they can tell it." Ethan feels a strange warmth in his chest. Not romantic yet. Just safe. A feeling he hasn't had in years. As weeks pass, Ethan begins helping around the cafe in small ways. Cleaning tables. Carrying supplies. Fixing a broken storage shelf using skills from his engineering background. Lena notices his abilities but never questions them. Instead, she simply says, "You're good with your hands." Ethan smiles quietly. Because for the first time, someone is valuing him. Not for his money, but for his effort. But life on the streets still tests him daily. Cold nights. Rain soaking through thin blankets. Moments of doubt. There are times when he almost gives up. When he almost returns to his old life. Yet something keeps him there. Something stronger than curiosity. Stronger than pride. A growing connection. To Lena. To the cafe. To the small community that has unknowingly begun to accept him. One afternoon, while sweeping outside the cafe, Ethan overhears a conversation between two customers. "Did you hear?" one whispers. "They still haven't found that billionaire." "Ethan Cole," the other replies. "Some say he ran away. Others say he's dead." Ethan's hands freeze mid-motion. His heart pounds. The world he left behind. Still searching for him. Still trying to pull him back. And for the first time, he feels fear. Not fear of being exposed, but fear of losing something new. Something real. Because in this simple life, among ordinary people, he has discovered something he never found in luxury. Genuine human connection. And as he looks through the cafe window, watching Lena laugh with a customer, a thought crosses his mind that both warms and terrifies him. What if this is the only place I've ever truly belonged? But he doesn't know yet that Lena has secrets of her own. Secrets that could change everything. And that the bond forming between them is about to be tested in ways either of them could imagine. Winter settles over the city like a heavy gray blanket. The wind cuts sharper now. Colder. More unforgiving. For people rushing between heated offices and warm homes, it's just another season. But for those living on the streets, winter is survival. And Ethan feels it in his bones. Every night, he curls into himself beneath the thin shelter of a bus stop, watching his breath fog into the air. His hands tremble from the cold, but something inside him has changed. He is no longer simply observing this world. He has become part of it. Beautiful souls, quick check-in. Have you ever met someone who restored your faith in humanity? If you have, drop a red heart in the comments. Because what Ethan is discovering now is exactly that. Each morning, Ethan begins helping Lena before she even opens the cafe. He sweeps the sidewalk, carries boxes of supplies, fixes small repairs that once would have required expensive contractors. At first, Lena tries to stop him. "You don't owe me anything," she tells him gently. But Ethan shakes his head. "I want to help," he says quietly. And he means it. Because helping her doesn't feel like work. It feels like purpose. Lena watches him closely over the weeks that follow. Not suspiciously, but curiously. She notices how careful he is when he handles equipment. How quickly he understands mechanical problems. How he speaks politely, even to customers who ignore him. And one evening she says softly, "You don't seem like someone who's always lived this life." Ethan pauses. His heart skips. But he answers truthfully, without revealing everything. "No," he says. "I haven't." Lena doesn't ask more. She simply nods, as if she understands. And that silent respect means more to him than any interrogation ever could. As their conversations grow longer, Ethan begins learning about Lena's life. She inherited the cafe from her late father, who had built it decades earlier as a place where anyone, rich or poor, could feel welcome. It was never meant to make huge profits. It was meant to serve people. "Money isn't everything," she tells Ethan one night while closing up. "My father used to say, the true wealth of a person is measured by how many lives they help." Those words strike Ethan deeply. Because they remind him of something he hasn't thought about in years. His own father. The man who once told him the same thing. One evening, something happens that shifts everything. An elderly homeless man collapses near the cafe door. Without hesitation, Lena rushes outside. She kneels beside him, wraps him in her own coat, and calls for medical help. She stays with him the entire time, holding his hand, speaking softly to calm him. Even after the ambulance arrives, she insists on paying for his emergency treatment. Ethan watches the entire scene from a distance. His chest tightens. Because in that moment, he realizes something powerful. Lena's kindness isn't selective. It isn't performative. It isn't influenced by status. She treats everyone with dignity, no matter who they are. That night, Ethan returns to the small storage locker where he secretly keeps a phone, one connected to a trusted employee who still believes he's on a confidential business trip. For weeks he hasn't used it. But now, he makes a call. "Send funds," he says quietly. "No names. No records. Just help." Within days, small miracles begin appearing around the neighborhood. Anonymous donations pay for medical treatments. Local shelters receive supplies. Struggling families find unexpected assistance. No one knows where the help comes from. Except Ethan. And he never tells Lena. Because this is his way of honoring the kindness she showed him first. As weeks pass, the bond between them grows stronger. They laugh together more. Share quiet conversations after closing. Speak about dreams, regrets, and the future. Ethan begins to feel something he hasn't felt in years. Hope. Not the shallow hope of financial success, but the deeper kind. The hope of belonging. The hope of being loved for who he truly is. But with that hope comes fear. Because one night, while watching news reports through a café television, Ethan sees something that shakes him. A breaking headline appears. Missing billionaire case reopens. Authorities close to new leads. Images of his former life flash across the screen. His face. His company. His wealth. Lena glances at the television briefly. Then returns to wiping a table. She doesn't react. But Ethan's heart pounds. Because the closer the search gets, the more fragile his new life becomes. And he realizes something painful. If Lena ever discovers who he truly is, everything could change. Her trust. Her perception. Their connection. Later that night, while walking home, Ethan whispers to himself, "Should I tell her?" But the answer terrifies him. Because for the first time in his life, he is loved for simply being human. Not powerful. Not wealthy. Not important. Just human. And he isn't ready to risk losing that. But he doesn't know yet that the greatest test of their connection is still coming. Because very soon, Lena's world will begin to fall apart. And Ethan will face the hardest decision of his life. To reveal the truth. Or to walk away forever. Spring should have brought relief. Warmer mornings. Longer evenings. More customers in Lena's cafe. But instead, it brings tension. Bills stack up quietly behind the counter. Invoices sit unopened in a drawer. And Lena's smile, once effortless, begins to look forced. Ethan notices it immediately. Because when you've spent your life reading boardrooms, you learn to read people too. And Lena is carrying something heavy. Beautiful souls. Have you ever tried to smile through a storm no one else could see? If you have, drop a yellow heart in the comments. Because what Lena is facing right now is about to test everything. One afternoon, Ethan arrives early and overhears a conversation inside the cafe. Two men in tailored suits sit across from Lena. Their voices are smooth. Polite. But calculated. "We're offering you more than the property is worth," one of them says calmly. "You can walk away with security. Stability." Lena shakes her head. "My father built this place for the community. Not to flip for profit." The second man leans forward. "You're behind on 3 months of rent. Suppliers are pressing. You won't survive another quarter." Ethan's stomach tightens. He didn't know it was that bad. The men leave shortly after, exchanging satisfied glances. Lena stands still for a moment once they're gone. Her shoulders drop. Just slightly. But enough. That evening, when the cafe closes, Ethan stays behind. "You're in trouble," he says gently. Lena hesitates. Then nods. "The landlord wants to sell the building," she admits. "Those investors are just waiting for me to fail so they can turn this place into another luxury chain." Ethan feels anger rise inside him. Not the loud kind. The quiet, protective kind. "How much do you need?" he asks. Lena looks at him sharply. "Money won't fix everything," she replies softly. "But it would fix this," he says before thinking. She studies him for a long moment. You sound like someone who believes money solves problems. Ethan freezes. Because that used to be true. He did believe that. She continues quietly. My father used to say, if you build something with money alone, it can be bought. But if you build it with heart, it has to be earned. Ethan says nothing. Because she doesn't know how much he could change overnight. How easily he could buy the building. Erase her debt. Secure her future. All with one phone call. That night, he walks away from the cafe in silence. He reaches the alley behind the building. Pulls out the hidden phone. His finger hovers over the contact that could fix everything. One call. One transfer. And her problems disappear. But something stops him. Because if he reveals himself now, will she see him differently? Will she look at him and see the man she's grown close to? Or will she see the billionaire she once said she didn't trust? Days pass. The pressure builds. A foreclosure notice appears taped discreetly near the back entrance. Ethan sees it before Lena does. And his chest feels like it's being crushed. He wants to protect her. But he also wants to be chosen. Without money. Without power. Without influence. One evening, after closing, Ethan returns quietly to collect a broom he left behind. The lights are dim. He hears Lena's voice inside. She's on the phone. And she sounds different. Exhausted. Why do rich men always think money gives them control? She says, frustration thick in her voice. I don't trust them anymore. I won't owe anyone like that again. Ethan stops cold. Her words hit like a punch. I don't trust them anymore. His heart sinks. Because that includes him. The real him. The billionaire version of him. He steps back into the shadows. Suddenly unsure of everything. Beautiful souls. What would you do if the person you were falling for openly distrusted the real version of you? Tell me honestly in the comments. Because this is the moment that breaks Ethan. That night, he doesn't sleep at the bus stop. He walks the city for hours. Past office towers he once owned. Past restaurants where people once competed for his attention. And he realizes something painful. He may have tested the world. But now the world is testing him. If he reveals himself to save Lena, he risks losing her trust. If he stays silent, he risks losing her entirely. The next morning, Ethan makes a decision. He begins packing the few belongings he has. Folding his worn coat carefully. Rolling up the thin blanket. He leaves the bus stop cleaner than he found it. Because he has decided to walk away. Not because he doesn't love her. But because he loves her too much to manipulate her with wealth. He believes she deserves someone honest. Someone simple. Someone not built on secrets. Before he leaves the neighborhood, he writes a short note. He places it under the cafe door. It reads, "Thank you for reminding me what kindness feels like. You changed my life." He doesn't sign his real name. Just Evan. As he walks away for what he believes is the last time, his phone vibrates. A notification from the news. Major investor group acquires multiple downtown properties. He clicks it. And his blood runs cold. The investors who pressured Lena are linked to his own company's competitors. And they are moving faster than expected. If he leaves now, she will lose everything. And this time, it will be partly his fault. Because he has the power to stop it. And he chose not to use it. Ethan stops in the middle of the sidewalk. His heart racing. Torn between two versions of himself. The man who wants to be loved without money. And the man who can save the woman he loves because of it. And for the first time since he disappeared, he realizes something devastating. True love isn't about hiding who you are. It's about trusting someone with the truth. He turns around and begins walking back toward the cafe, ready to risk everything. But he has no idea that Lena may already know more than he thinks. Ethan doesn't slow down. He doesn't think. He doesn't second-guess himself. For the first time since he disappeared, he runs toward the truth instead of away from it. The cafe lights are still on when he arrives. Inside, Lena is alone, staring at paperwork spread across the counter. Her shoulders look heavier than ever. Ethan steps inside quietly. She looks up. Relief flashes across her face, then confusion. "I thought you left," she says softly. "I almost did," he replies. Silence hangs between them. Ethan takes a deep breath. His voice is steady now. "There's something you need to know. Beautiful souls. This is the moment everything changes. If you've stayed with this story this far, drop a fire in the comments. Because what happens next is not what you expect." Ethan reaches into his coat pocket, pulls out the phone he hasn't shown her before, and places it gently on the counter. "My name isn't Evan," he says quietly. Lena doesn't move. "My real name is Ethan Cole." The air seems to stop. The city noise outside fades into silence. Ethan continues, because he has to. "I'm the billionaire they've been searching for." No dramatic music. No explosion. Just truth. Raw and exposed. "I left my life because I didn't know if anyone could love me without knowing what I have," he says. "And then I met you." His voice cracks for the first time. "I never meant to lie to you. I just wanted to know what it felt like to be chosen, without money." He expects anger. Shock. Maybe even betrayal. Instead, Lena exhales slowly and says something that shakes him more than anything else tonight. "I know." Ethan freezes. "You what?" She nods. "I recognize you the second week." His mind races. "That's impossible." She walks around the counter, standing only a few feet away. "I used to work in corporate compliance," she explains calmly. "Years ago. Your company audited a non-profit partnership my father was part of." Ethan searches his memory. Small contracts. Minor divisions. He would never have met every employee involved. "You visited once," she continues. "Very briefly. But I remember you." The room feels smaller now. Lena's voice stays steady. "When the news said you were missing, I connected the dots." Ethan can barely process it. "You knew who I was," he whispers. "Yes." "And you never said anything?" She shakes her head. "Because I wanted to see if you would stay kind when no one was watching." The words land heavy. "You weren't the only one testing something," she says gently. "I've seen what wealth does to people. My father lost everything trusting investors who promised to help." Her eyes soften. "So when you showed up pretending to be invisible, I watched." She steps closer. "You didn't treat anyone badly. You helped without being asked. You shared food when you barely had enough." Her voice trembles slightly now. "That told me more about you than your bank account ever could." Beautiful souls. Did you see that twist coming? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes the person being tested isn't the only one running an experiment. Ethan's chest feels tight. Not from fear. From relief. "You're not angry?" he asks quietly. "I was," she admits. "At first. But I realized something." She smiles faintly. "You didn't pretend to be poor to manipulate me. You did it because you were hurt. Tears threatened to rise in his eyes. I thought if I revealed myself, I'd lose you. Lena shakes her head. You would have lost me if you kept hiding. Silence fills the space between them. But this silence is different. It isn't empty. It's understanding. Ethan glances at the foreclosure notice taped near the door. I can stop this, he says firmly. Not to control you. Not to buy you. But because I believe in what this place stands for. Lena studies him carefully. And if I say no? Then I respect that. He answers immediately. No conditions. No ownership. Just support. She searches his face for hesitation. There is none. Only sincerity. Finally, she nods. Then help the community, she says. Not just me. Within weeks, the cafe is saved. But not bought. Ethan creates a foundation in Lena's father's name, funding small businesses, homeless outreach programs, and financial literacy workshops for struggling families. He doesn't put his own name on the building. He doesn't plaster his face on advertisements. Instead, he sits quietly at a small table near the window some mornings, drinking coffee, laughing with regulars. No longer invisible, but no longer defined by wealth either. Months later, during a small community gathering outside the cafe, Lena takes his hand in front of everyone. This place was built on heart, she says to the crowd. And so is he. Ethan feels something inside him finally settle. Not because he found someone who ignored his money, but because he found someone who saw through it. The man who once believed he had to lose everything to find love discovered something deeper. True love isn't about hiding who you are. It's about revealing it, and being accepted anyway. Beautiful souls. Thank you for taking this journey. If this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that real wealth is measured by character, hit that subscribe button. And tell me in the comments, would you have done what Ethan did? Or would you have revealed the truth sooner? Because sometimes, the greatest fortune in life is being loved for who you are, not what you own. The end.